Bless you,
And
brother
hear me?
Demarcus. Bless
Yes,
you.
thanks. I got to give a report. As I was getting ready, because I've been up, ready, washed, cleaned, hey man, making sure all my slides were good. And my computer went out and I thought I had my charger. Apparently, I left it at work. So I had to switch to my older computer, which needed to be updated, but I am here. Okay.
I bless
Um,
you.
Amen. So, are we just jumping right in, Sister Nikki?
Yes, please. It's on. Yes, however you want to
Okay.
do it.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Okay. Give me 1 second.
By the way, okay, bid.
I'm sorry.
Last time we saw you, you didn't have the beard going. I
Oh,
said, okay,
yes.
beard.
Yes. God bless you. We growing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Striving. Amen.
All right. So let me share my screen. You have to enable sharing for me if you don't mind.
Trees, can you handle that? Or
I
There
just
we
did. I
go.
think it should do it now.
Yes. All right. Okay, can y'all see anything? Okay, there we go. So let me get ready to. All right, just to make sure y'all are seeing um, my intro screen, correct?
correct.
Okay. So praise the Lord, everybody. My name is Brother Jamarcus. Of course, I am going to take you on a little journey this morning into the topic of nutrition. So, as a few of you all know, I do go under the moniker of Chef Boy RDN for my personal nutritional information. And just a quick aside for that. So, a lot of people often ask me about the name, like, why Chef Boy RDN? And I'm a child of the 90s, the early 2000s. And so, growing up, one of the big staples of the 90s and the early 2000s was Chef Boyardee, the canned pasta, right? And it's ironic that I'm a chef. Uh, I'm also a male, so I'm a boy, and I'm an RD, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. So I thought it would be a good play on words just to play homage to kind of the era that I grew up in, as well as it literally explains who I am as a person in my profession. So that is why Chef Boyardee exists. And this is just nutrition according to Chef Boyardee. It's a fun, informative, science-based nutritional conversation. And that's what I want it to be. I want it to be a conversation. So I do have some slides I want to get through. Of course, I'm going to have time for questions at the end. But as things come up, if you have pressing questions, please feel free, ask. I just ask, obviously, that you um, make sure that if a question has been asked before, maybe if you need more understanding, that's fine. But try to pay attention so that we are not getting like repeating questions. All right. So just a little more about me before we jump in. So why am I qualified, right? I started out in 2011. I got my associates in culinary arts. In 2014, I went back to school and got a business degree. And so from 2011 to 2021, I was in the restaurant industry. I was working as a chef, as a lot of you all know me as, and a restaurant manager. I was managing a lot of different restaurants. I got to work at steakhouses, upscale. I got to work at family dining. So I did a lot of things within that 10 years that really allowed me to understand nutrition from the standpoint of what tastes good, right? Because it's two parts about it. It's what's good for you as well as what tastes good. Um, and so I'll never forget, it was 2018 And I came home and I sat on the side of the bed. I was tired. And I just looked at my wife and I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And the encouragement that she gave me and the support that she gave me as I started on this new journey was amazing. I wouldn't trade my wife in for the world. Amen. So I am so grateful that she offered support and really helped me, because the next part of my journey was going back to school, which going back to school in your late 20s, early 30s is not the easiest thing to do. And so in 2021, I ended up getting a master's degree in clinical nutrition and became a registered dietitian. Since that time, I worked as a dietitian, starting off in a children's hospital. So I was able to work in the pediatric ICU. I worked with gastrointestinal nutrition, short bowel, which was one of my favorites, SMA syndrome, which is a very specific syndrome. And I kind of became the nutrition expert at the hospital because I saw one of the first ones to come to the hospital, and after that, nobody else wanted to see them. So I ended up seeing all of them. I also worked with the endocrinologist and worked with diabetes. I worked with nephrology. And the cool thing about when I worked at the children's hospital, the floor that I managed before I moved into the PICU, or the pediatric ICU, was a specialty unit floor. So that's why I was able to see, we saw type 2 diabetes, we saw nephrology, we saw gastrointestinal, all on that same floor. So it really gave me a big, diverse portfolio in nutrition, just being on that one floor. And then I moved from all of that into outpatient nutrition management, which is what I do now. I work at, it's a company, but it has 4 clinics in Memphis, and I work with each clinic, going to a different clinic like every day to meet with people, talk about nutrition, see what kind of chronic diseases they have, what are their goals, and then we work together to meet their goals. So that's me. Now, why is nutrition so important? Well, according to the CDC, and this was taken back in 2022, these are the top 10 causes of death in the US. Now, let's just take a little trip back. In 2022, we know that that was kind of when COVID was just starting to kind of die down more, but it was still really high. But what I want to show that's very interesting is, even though the COVID numbers were high that year, we had almost 190,000 deaths from COVID alone. The highest one was heart disease. And heart disease, we lost 700,000 people to heart disease. That's a lot of people, y'all. Heart disease is something that generally is preventable. A lot of times it's a progressive disease. It also kind of happens as a comorbidity. So you have a lot of other diseases like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, all of those types of diseases, they come together, nephrotic syndrome, and eventually they can lead to cardiovascular disease or heart disease. So it's the leading killer to this day in the US. So many people die from heart disease. So this is what we try to prevent, right? And it's more than cancer. Cancer is not the leader. A lot of people think that that's what it is, but it's heart disease. And so when you kind of think of nutrition and all of these things that are on the list, I've highlighted all of the things that can directly be impacted by lifestyle, right? So heart disease, that's something that we can help to prevent by just how we eat, how we live, our environment, what we're introduced to, things like that. Same thing with cancer. Cancer, not as much. There are some cancers that are they just happen, unfortunately, but there are cancers that have been scientifically shown to be reduced when you change your diet, or not reduced as far as when you develop the cancer, but developing the cancer itself. There are lesser you have a lesser likelihood to develop that cancer with certain, with changing your diet and things like that. Of course, accidents, unintentional injuries, I mean, can't really help that. COVID, there hasn't been too much research that proves that diet can necessarily change the outcomes of COVID. Now, it can help to make sure that you have a robust immune system, right? So eating foods that help to boost your immune system will help with that, but there is no specific direct correlation between diet change and COVID. And then stroke, again, nutrition can help. Chronic lower respiratory disease, which Alzheimer's, it's in yellow because it's kind of been shown, but there's still a lot more research on Alzheimer's disease. Diabetes, we pretty much know that, I mean, nutrition. Same thing with nephritis, nephrosis, and nephrotic syndrome. These are all kidney and renal related diseases. So when you think about dialysis, when you think about, all of those different diseases, they can be impacted by nutrition. And then the last thing is chronic liver disease and cirrhosis. We know that your diet, a lot of people are now developing chronic liver disease from non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So back in the day, most people that you heard about with liver issues had them because, as we call it in the church, they was a wine bibber. They like to drink. But now we have a lot of people who are developing these chronic liver diseases because they're over consuming calories, and the fat storage that normally would happen on your body is starting to happen in the liver. And so it creates scar tissue, and this causes that chronic liver disease. So it can directly, again, be affected by the nutrition and the things we eat. Okay, and then the last thing is one of the comorbidities or the markers that lead to a lot of these diseases is obesity and prediabetes. The CDC estimates that about 98 million American adults, that's 1 out of 3, which is a lot, fall within the pre-diabetic range. So with the pre-diabetic range, this is something that has been seen pretty recently. I would even say 10, 20 years ago, we really didn't talk about pre-diabetes, really not even 5 years ago. We didn't talk about it as much as we talk about it now, because pre-diabetes technically isn't a disease, but it is a marker to show, hey, we're getting very close to developing type 2 diabetes. So this is a lot of times, I will have patients that come into my office with pre-diabetes, and we try to walk those numbers back before they get to the diabetic stage. So with pre-diabetes, typically your hemoglobin A1C is going to be between a 5.7 and a 6.5. Or your fasting blood sugar kind of resides between a 100 and a 125 typically. Now, your fasting blood sugar, for those who may have type 2 diabetes, you typically know that you have to prick your finger, right? And so that fasting blood sugar is the one where you wake up and you haven't eaten anything. After you've eaten that last meal the night before, you've taken an 8-hour sleep, and you wake up, what does your blood sugars look like? Within that time, for most people, your blood sugars will live kind of around 100 and lower, right? To about somewhere in the 80s. But for people with pre-diabetes, it'll be at 100 to about 125. Of course, pre-diabetes can naturally increase your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. It also can increase your risk for stroke and cardiovascular disease or heart disease. Okay, according to WHO, in 2022, one of every 8 people are obese. It is consistently rising. And what's so interesting to me, compared to the 1990s, obesity in adults have more than doubled and has quadrupled in adolescents, which are children, kids that are under the age of 18. That's a big number. It's a big crisis. That's why our former First Lady, Madam Michelle Obama, she really did an initiative to try to help to reduce the obesity in adolescents and kids. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now let's jump into the actual nutrition of it all. Okay, so macros, waters, and a little fiber in between. So we're going to start out with macros. So we have two major types of nutrition. We have our macronutrients and our micronutrients. I'm going to start talking about micronutrients first. Our micronutrients, it's kind of in the name. It's small little nutrients that our body needs to do its different processes. And those will be our vitamins and minerals, okay? For the purpose of time, I'm not going to really go into that because that can be its own whole thing. But what I will say is most of our vitamins and minerals can be found in whole foods those are things like plants, right? So fresh vegetables, fruits. It also can be found in animal meats, chicken, beef. Beef has a lot of iron in it. And so one thing that I will say lastly about micronutrition is if you know that you aren't eating a well-balanced diet, one, eat a well-balanced diet, but two, consider taking a multivitamin, a daily multivitamin. It should be something that is a complete multivitamin is what it will be called. One a days has them for different ages. And the last thing I'll say about a multivitamin is I always tell people pick the pill, the tablet, or whatever you want to call it over the gummy, okay? Because the gummy doesn't typically have as many nutrients in it as the pill or the tablet, as well as that's just adding additional sugar that we don't need. Maybe as kids, but as adults, yeah, take the pill. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. So enough about that. Let's get into the macro. So our macronutrients are going to be those big building blocks. Okay. So we talked about micronutrients being the small building blocks for the processes that we need. Our macronutrients are the big building blocks. So those are proteins, fats, carbohydrates. And they help us in our various functions. Proteins help with muscle and tissue production, of course. They also help with bones, cartilage, blood, skin, enzymes, which are the things that just kind of help our bodies do a lot of its breaking down of things. So enzymes help to break down food, for example. And then hormones. Proteins also are very big in hormone production. Fats. So fats are big in organ production or protection, I'm sorry. Temperature regulation, hormone production, male and female hormones. So that's specifically talking about testosterone and estrogen, cell function, and then there are immune boosting vitamins that are what we call fat soluble vitamins. So those would be our vitamins A, vitamins D, vitamins E. And then lastly, fat helps with satiety. So it helps us to feel fuller longer. Okay. And then the last macro is our carbohydrates. So that's our quick acting energy source. That's the thing that, a lot of people joke about when Black people see people running, they don't ask questions, they just run. Those carbohydrates are going to be that energy that gets you to run. Okay. That's your quick acting energy source. All right, proteins, please. Proteins are going to be the first macro that we talk about. As I said earlier, proteins do a lot of different processes. A lot of times, this is the main macronutrient that everybody praises, right? Eat more protein, eat more protein. And to be honest, for the most part, typically we eat enough protein in our diet, okay? And our diet really is about a balance. But of course, when we talk about different proteins, you're going to have your meat sources. So that'll be things like chicken. Just a quick note for chicken, if you remove or limit the skin consumption, it lowers the saturated fat. This is good for just helping to keep the heart healthy because that saturated fat builds up and it starts to cause artery plaquing is what we call it. Beef. So when picking beef, choose a ground beef that is 80-20 or higher. So when you look at the numbers on the ground beef, and most of y'all probably know this, but the first number is going to be the percentage of lean meat. The second number is going to be the percentage of fat. Okay, so when you are choosing a meat, if you choose like a 70-30, that has a pretty high amount of fat. So try to get 80-20 or less. They have it all the way up to like 93.7. So, you know, you can get some pretty lean ground beef, but just trying to limit, again, that saturated fat. Pork. Okay, so when you choosing pork, a lot of times when we think about pork, the first things that our minds go to is bacon, right? Pork chops, typically fried or smothered. But when you're picking pork, try to pick, if you do pork, this is not an ad for pork, so I don't want to, but if you do pork, try to pick lean cuts of pork, like pork loin. They're going to be best for you, okay? Fish, you want to choose fish that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. Fish also can be high in vitamin D, B12, calcium, and other minerals. So fish is going to be a great source to keep in rotation, okay? Turkey. As we know, turkey is a good substitution for ground beef. It has a lot less saturated fat in it. So if you are choosing ground turkey, that is a good option to have. Okay. Dairy, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, milk cheese, and protein shakes. Dairy is also going to have protein in it. I always tell people, especially when it comes to snacks, think about adding Greek yogurt into your diet, and cottage cheese. Personally, not a fan of cottage cheese, because I just can't give it the taste. But for people who like it, it is probably the highest in protein when you kind of look at all the different dairies. Okay. And then eggs. One fun fact about eggs is a lot of people will eat the egg whites for protein, but pound for pound, the yolks actually contains more protein than the egg white does. Okay, and then of course you have vegetarian options. So when you think about proteins, proteins are actually a big group of what we call amino acids. Okay, and our body needs non-essential amino acids that it doesn't make from the proteins that we eat. Okay, so when you take nuts and seeds and you eat them, they have a certain number of those non-amino acids. And then when you eat grains, they have a certain number of those non-amino acids. So when you pair them together, they make what we call a complete protein. So eating nuts and seeds plus grains will provide a complete protein, as well as eating beans or peas plus grains. Okay. And then the last thing is vegan or vegetarian options. This could be soybeans, tofu, meat alternatives. All right, so I want y'all to say this with me. I might not hear you, but I want you to say it out loud. Nutritional fat is not bad, okay? Fat gets a bad rap in America. We think of fat and, you know, that's the first thing that we want to cut out of our diets. But the goal is to pick high quality fats, and those are going to be fats that are high in or fats that are mono and polyunsaturated. You also want to pick fats that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and that are rich in fat soluble vitamins. Okay, so we start out with one thing that I find funny as I provide nutritional education to people. The one fat that everybody knows is healthy. Everybody, like I haven't ran across one person that doesn't know it yet, is olive oil. And I don't know how collectively we all decided. I guess we've just heard it so much, but everybody will tell you, you know, olive oil is so healthy. Extra virgin olive oil, you know, da. And it is, it's true. It's very healthy. It has a lot of healthy benefits. Typically, extra virgin olive oil would be used for dressing like salads and cold things where you're not necessarily heating it up. You can use it to cook in, but it has a lower smoke point. But you can use standard olive oil as well. You'll still get a lot of those benefits, and it has a higher smoke point. When you are using just standard olive oil that's not extra virgin, you do sometimes, depending on the quality of olive oil, want to look at the back of the bottle because sometimes it will be a blend. So it'll have like olive oil and soybean oil or something like that. Avocados and avocado oil is another good healthy fat. And so if you're looking for something with a high smoke point that's a neutral tasting oil, avocado oil is your friend. Okay, so go out, find you some avocado oil, start using it in place of maybe your vegetable oil or your canola oil that you cook with. Fatty fish. So these fish are all high in omega-3 fatty acids. That's going to be tuna, salmon, mackerel, trout, oysters, halibut, sardines, and anchovies. Okay, and then nuts. Walnuts are going to be your highest in omega-3 fatty acids. They are actually considered a superfood because they are so high in omega-3 fatty acids. And then next to them will be pecans. And then after that, all of the other nuts do have fat in them. They're just not that high in omega-3 fatty acids. Flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds are all high in omega-3 fatty acids. And then, of course, dairy provides a good source of fat as well, like a whole Greek yogurt, milk, things like that. All right, to carb or not to carb? That is the question. So like I said, fat traditionally has been the villain, but carb is the new villain on the block. We do not like carbs, right? Carbs are terrible for you. Eliminate all carbs. No, you shouldn't do that. Each macronutrient has its own place, and carbohydrates have their place too. Again, they're our quick acting energy source. And so it's about the type of carbs that you eat that makes the difference. So you have two different categories. Our first category is going to be starches and sugars. These are going to be things like grains, which would be rice, oats, wheat. So that includes bread, pasta, cookies, cakes, pastries, corn. Praise the Lord. Good morning, everybody. Just so you know, corn is a starch, okay? It's not considered a vegetable, it's considered a starch. So when you say, yeah, I got vegetables on my plate, and it's a plate full of corn, that is a starch, okay? I hope I'm waking somebody up, bursting a couple bubbles this morning. Amen. Potatoes, that also includes sweet potatoes. Those are also starches, okay? That doesn't make it bad or good. This is just the category that it lives in. So a lot of times, and especially when we get to the question kind of portion, I want you to understand that nutrition is not black and white, okay? So just because they are starches does not make them bad foods. They can definitely go into a balanced, well-nourished diet. But depending on what you have going on, they just might not be good for you, right? So for a person who is normal, happy, healthy, active, running around, moving, is in good shape, they probably, especially like a runner, they probably could eat a lot more carbs than most of us. For somebody with type 2 diabetes, probably you still can have some carbs, but you probably want to stay away from as many carbs, especially those simple carbs, right? So it's not a black and white thing. It's not that it's inherently bad or it's inherently good. It really just depends on the person. In that, you also have fruit. Fruit is not a starch, but it has sugar, which is fructose, right? And then when you are choosing items from this category, try to choose complex carbohydrates like fruits and whole grains versus simple carbohydrates. So wheat bread versus white bread, right? Wild rice versus white rice. Whole grain or rolled oats versus instant packaged oats with the little sugar added. All of those things are going to be more beneficial for you. And then the last category in the starch and sugars is going to be simple sugars. So that's just sugar, right? So pastries, drinks, all of those things kind of live in this category. All right, second category is non-starchy vegetables. I'm not going to go do a deep dive, but just know that there are so many non-starchy vegetables. It's typically every vegetable that really didn't make the last list is going to be on this list, right? So lettuce, spinach, field greens, tomatoes, bell peppers, cucumbers, salads, all of those things are going to be our non-starchy vegetables. All right, fiber, a macro that we just can't get enough of. So fiber is technically not a macronutrient. It kind of goes under the carb category, but it doesn't really process in your body like carbohydrates. So we kind of look at it in its own category because it has its own health benefits. So fiber is a component of the carbohydrates, as I said, but our body we can't break it down and use it for energy, okay? But it does have some benefits. It helps with satiety. So when you eat foods full with fiber, you feel fuller longer. It's a prebiotic. So it helps to feed the good gut bacteria that is in our gut, right? And we need those bacteria. They're very important for a lot of different things, including our immune system. They play a role in that. They help with digesting themselves. They actually can produce B12. So the bacteria that live in our stomach will help produce the B12 that we need, that vitamin. And so the fiber helps to feed those bacteria. Fiber also has this thing that's called MAC, which stands for microbiota accessible carbohydrates. So these are carbs that we can't digest, but specifically bacteria eats on those specific carbs. So if you're not having a diet that has some fiber in it, you're not feeding those bacteria that needs those MACs, right? Which is not beneficial. The other benefits of fiber is it lowers cholesterol. This is why when you see like Cheerios and oatmeal, they have the little heart on it that says it's heart healthy. That's specifically because that fiber within the cereal and the oatmeal helps to lower those cholesterols and the lipids. It also aids in digestion, okay? We already know that one thing that has a lot of fiber in it is beans. And we know the saying, beans, good for the heart, right? The more you eat them, right? And so we know that fiber helps to aid in digestion. The last thing it does is it helps to bulk stool. So a lot of times if you are going to the bathroom and you're flowing and going, which you probably shouldn't be doing from a number 2 standpoint, you shouldn't be flowing and going, right? If you eat fiber, it'll help to bulk that up so that you can have normal bowel movements. All right. In 2021, study found that only 7% of adults in America, that's about 5% of men, 9% of women, get enough fiber in their diet. So if you're not in that 5 to 9%, you got to increase your fiber. Typically, your goal for fiber per day is 14 grams for every 1,000 calories that you eat. Most Americans live somewhere around, at least adults, live around between 1,200 to kind of 3,000 calories typically within a day. So you would kind of need 28 to about 35 grams of fiber per day for the average American, okay? All right, finding fiber. So where can we find fiber? Fiber is found in non-starchy vegetables. So all of those vegetables that we talked about kind of earlier, the leafy greens, the kale, the cabbage, the broccoli, all of those different things, the bell peppers, they're going to have fiber in them. Fruit actually has some fiber in it as well, okay? Especially like the skin of fruit. So like apples, apple skin is going to have fiber. Peach skin is going to have fiber. Whole grains are going to have fiber. So brown rice, whole wheat, quinoa, popcorn. Believe it or not, popcorn is a actually very beneficial food when it comes to increasing fiber. Now, when I'm saying popcorn, I'm talking about, you know, fresh popped. I'm not talking about movie popcorn where we're adding 3 to 4 cups of butter every time we go for a refill, right? Probably not going to have as much fiber in it. The oats also have a lot of fiber. And then bran cereal. Bran cereal has a lot of fiber. Again, that's why Cheerios are able to put that little heart at the bottom. Okay. Nuts and nut butters. Nut butters are going to be like peanut butter, almond butter, sunflower butter, things like that. Those are also going to have some fiber. Beans, loaded with fiber. Flax seeds have a lot of fiber. Chia seeds have a lot of fiber. Lentils and soybeans also have fiber. Okay, so we can find fiber in a lot of different places. So moving on to water. The earth is mostly water, and so are you, right? And we're about to get into a part of the talk where I really want it to be a little more interactive. So I'm gonna give y'all some, we're gonna go to school for a second, okay? So water. It's good for hydration, it's good for digestion. It's an acid buffer, or it helps with the acid buffer. So bile is the thing that allows our stomach acid to be able to, so basically when we eat food, right, it goes into our stomach, and a part of the digestion process is that our stomach produces this acid that's very, very acidic, and it actually helps to break down the food. Well, this acid is so acidic that it can really only live in our stomach and we not have issues. Our stomach has special linings that can handle the acid. The rest of our body doesn't. And that's why if you have acid reflux, you can literally kind of feel it coming back up, right? But you never feel that acid typically in your stomach. So as our food gets done with the acid, it goes from our stomach to our small intestines. Again, our small intestines can't handle that acid. So what happens is we produce this substance called bile that actually drips into our small intestines as the food is going into our small intestines. And it helps to raise the pH and make it more basic. So instead of it being acidic, it's now basic, and our body can handle it in our small intestines without feeling like our small intestines is on fire, okay? But that bile, 95% of that bile is made up of water. So water is very important for that. Water also flushes our body waste. We already know that. It's the main component of our cells. It also, for our mucus lining cells, so all of the cells that line our digestive tract, starting from our mouth going all the way until it basically exits, is going to be lined with what we call mucus cells. And so these cells help so that the food can kind of slide down pretty easy, right? And even the salivation, the saliva in your mouth is made up of water. Think about how rough it would be if you've ever eaten a dry piece of bread trying to swallow it, right? So water is very important for that. Lastly, it's important for joint lubrication. So there have been a lot of times where people have had joint pain, and it wasn't anything but the fact that they just weren't drinking enough water. And once they became properly hydrated, a lot of their joint pain went away. Now, that's not to say that's in all cases, right? Because we do have things like arthritis and different things that could also lead to joint pain. But lubrication of the joints is water plays a big role in that. Okay, so 50 to 75% of your body is made up of water. And in a recent study, it showed that 47 of most adult Americans do not drink at least half of their daily water requirement. So what does that mean? That's not saying that 47% of us aren't getting enough. It's saying that we don't even drink half of what we're supposed to drink, right? So my question to you is, do you drink enough water? All right, and we're going to explore that in the next slide, okay? So what I have here is a calculation for you to do to see how much water you should drink per day. And we can kind of go through it together. So if you do have a calculator and you want to pull it out and kind of work on it with me, you definitely can, okay? So this is using the Holliday-Seeger method. This is the #1 recommended method for nutritionists to basically calculate how much water you need in a day, okay? So step 1 is you want to start with your current weight. So what is your current weight? Put that in the calculator, right? With your current weight, you want to subtract 40 from that, okay? Once you subtract 40 from that, you should get a number, okay? Take that number, and this is step 2, and you're going to multiply it by 0.3. This will give you a second number. Okay, so after you get the second number, step 3 is taking that second number and adding 51 to it. Now, once you do this, this will give you your daily water goal in ounces, okay? To get it into cups, all you have to do is divide it by 8 because there are 8 ounces in a cup. To get it into disposable water bottles, which are just the little plastic 6.9 ounce water bottles, you would just divide that number by 6.9. And if you have like a personal cup, like a Stanley, everybody's loving those, a Hydro Flask, or any type of cup like that, all you have to do is see how many ounces that cup is made up of. So for example, the Stanley is made up of 40 ounces. And then you would divide that number by the 40 ounces, right? And that'll give you how many of those cups you need per day. Okay. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna do some math, okay? And I'm going to, let me fix my screen so I can see. All right, so Johnny weighs 200 pounds, right? And reports that he drinks, it might be some typos in here. I just would like to tell everybody that math is my strong suit, calculus, did all of that. I also love science. Science is my strong suit. Went all the way to Orgo Chem. But if you see some typos, just charge it to my head, not to my heart. Anyway, he drinks 1.5 Stanley cups of water per day. Does Johnny get enough water? So what I want y'all to do now is just use the method that we talked about and calculate it out. I'm gonna give you a few minutes to do that, maybe 2, and then we will see kind of what you come up with, okay? Once you kind of get your answer, if you want to, you can type it in the chat. Oh, somebody asked, what is the best bottled water? So while y'all are doing that, we can talk about that. So to be honest with you, it doesn't matter as much as people kind of put emphasis on it. So a lot of people will say like electrolyte water is the best. Some people will say distilled water is the best. Some people will say spring water is the best. It really doesn't matter. It's more about preference. And the reason why is if you are eating a well-balanced diet and you're drinking adequate water, you will get kind of the nutrients and the benefits that you get from each of those different waters from your food. What's more important to me is, are you drinking enough water, right? So whether you like, I don't know if anybody likes this honey on here. I don't understand. But It doesn't matter what bottle your preference is, as long as you are drinking the adequate amount, is what I would say. All right, so let me see some numbers in the chat. What number did we come up with? Okay, okay. I see somebody got 99 ounces. Anybody else? The eyes are sending me, Harold. Okay, so somebody agrees with the 99 ounces. I need a couple more people before I move on. What do we got? I'm taking you back to school. Okay. Patrice is also saying it. Now don't y'all be adding on just to add on, because he could be wrong. Right? Okay. Reading is her. Okay. Okay. All right, so we're gonna see. Let's move on. Let's see what we got, and we'll do it together, okay? So, as we said, okay, somebody got 88 ounces. So Johnny weighs 200 pounds and reports that he drinks 1.5 Stanley cups of water per day. Does Johnny get enough water? So step one would be to start out with what he weighs, right? So he weighs 200 pounds. We're going to subtract 40 from that. That will give us our first number, which is 160, okay? And then we're going to go to step two, and we're going to multiply that by 0.3. That's going to give us our next number, which is 48. All right, and then our next step is going to give us our ounce goal, right? So step three, you add 51 and you got 99 ounces per day. Harold, you are the winner. You get the prize of continuing to be my friend. Amen. Which is, I mean, is there a greater prize? I don't think so. All right. So he needs 99 ounces of water per day. Now let's take it a step further, because the question asks, does he get enough water, right? So we said that he's drinking 1.5 Stanley cups. So if we are looking at actual cups, we divide that number by 8. He should be drinking about 12.4 cups per day. If we're looking at disposable water bottles, we divide that same 99 by 16.9. So he should be drinking 5.9 water bottles per day. Also, let me just back up and say that when we get these weird numbers like this, even if it's like a 12.4, I always like to round up, because you just can't get too much water. So I would say that this is about 12.5 cups to 13 cups, right? This is 6 bottles. I mean, who is saving 0.1 bottles of water? Just go ahead and drink that last thing, right? So again, is he getting enough for the Stanley Cup? So y'all take that 99 divided by 40. Let me know, is he getting enough? Oh, okay. Michelle is doing the thing. She said based on a 40 ounce cup, Johnny is not getting enough water. And that is correct. He needs 2.5 Stanley cups per day. Okay. So this is just an easy way. Now, one thing I will say about this method is it does not work if you are under 40 pounds, okay? Typically, you get past 40 pounds when you are about between 4 and 6 for most kids. So at that point, for the most part, kids will kind of, they're good with drinking. That it's very rare that a kid isn't drinking enough water if you are given the option of water. Now, if you're giving them, well, we'll get to that in a second. But yes. Okay, so my next question, And I want to, for each one, I want to see some answers. So I'm gonna ask, and then I'm gonna give you a little time for answer. We're gonna ask, will it hydrate you? Okay. And so basically what we're thinking about is, will these things count as meeting your water goal for the day? Will they actually hydrate you? So we're gonna start with water, an easy one. And as soon as I get an answer, I'm gonna just move on. So as quick as you can type. Will water hydrate you? Okay, we got a yes. All right, moving on.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Will sodas hydrate you? We're talking about Cokes, Sprites, Dr. Pepper, Mountain
No.
Dew. Okay. What about flavored beverages? So this is Kool-Aid, Minute Maid, Sunny D. And yes, Sunny D is a flavored beverage. It's not orange juice.
No.
Okay, so I got a yes, I got a no. It will not hydrate you. Okay. What about tea? Will tea count as meeting your water goal?
Will herbal tea work?
Okay. So I got a yes. Somebody asked, will herbal tea work? Yes. So tea in general, if it's not overly sweetened, it is fine to count as your water goal. It will help you meet your water goal. All right, here's another one that might be controversial. What about coffee? Will coffee help you meet your water goal? I got a no. I got a yes. Another no.
I say yes.
It's partially. All right. Yeah. So to be honest with you all, yes. Now, it is a caveat to that. Okay. Oh, Victoria coming through with if it's black. Love that. There is a caveat. So coffee will help you meet your water goal, right? What I want you to take away from me saying that is not me saying drink coffee only. We still need to be drinking water. Coffee is a natural diuretic. So though it will help you meet your water goal, the more coffee you drink, it can actually start to dehydrate you a little bit because it makes you go to the restroom, right? The other thing about coffee is if it's a Starbucks coffee and you get 9 pumps of sugar and you got, cold foam and you got, extra cream added, at that point, that is not coffee. That is not coffee. That is a caffeinated beverage. So that is not going to contribute to your hydration. So typically black coffee, or even if you did like a pack of sugar, like 1, maybe 2 max, and like a splash of cream or something like that, that could count as your hydration goal. Okay. Oh, somebody said they like it strong. I actually drink my coffee black. I like it black. I grew there. I didn't start there. So what about prebiotic teas and sodas? Kombucha, Olipop, and Poppy.
Yes, kombucha.
Okay. I'm getting yes. 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 Well, the answer is no.
Really?
No. So you can definitely drink those and they have benefits, right? They're going to add to your fiber. They're going to add to your gut health, but they still have sugars in them, typically. And so again, somebody said, but I love kombucha. So remember, nutrition is not black and white. Me saying that it doesn't add to your hydration goal doesn't mean don't drink it, right? You can still drink it, but you still need to try to meet your hydration goal with water, or things. It's smelly though. I have a love-hate relationship with kombucha, but I do love Olipop and Poppy. These are 2 new sodas that are coming on the market pretty strong. And the difference between those and a traditional soda is they have a lot less sugar in them. They're typically sweetened with some form of sugar alternative like stevia. And then they have a high amount of fiber. So they're a good prebiotic. All right, let's move on. Sparkling water. Will it hydrate you?
No.
Okay, I got a no. Anybody else? No. So sparkling water actually does go for your water goals. So, but when we say sparkling water, we are talking about the clear sparkling water. I'm not talking about like ice or things like that, but those that like a LaCroix, a Bubbly, a Perrier, those will actually go to your water goals. All right, we got a couple of more, a few more. Water with sugar-free packets in it. So you know, if anybody has been on Water Talk, this is going crazy right now. Does that contribute?
No.
Okay, so it can, but what I want you to understand is the more of those sugar packets that you add, the worse it can actually be on your microbiome. So that good gut bacteria that we were talking about earlier, if you are adding all of those packets of sugar, a lot of research has shown that it starts to kill off that good gut bacteria. And it's not super conclusive that it definitively kills it, but what we do know from research is that it is conclusive that it has a negative effect on that gut bacteria. Okay, so it's okay to have like one packet every now and again, but if all of your water is being met through those sugar-free packets and you're adding like 4 to 5, and even really 2, that's a lot. Okay.
So that's like Crystal Light, right?
Yes, so I want to
Okay.
be specific. I'm glad you asked. So it's like Crystal Light. It's though also like the little squeeze bottles that you can squeeze the flavoring in. I'm not specifically talking about packets like Equal, Splenda, and things like that. But I'm talking about those sugar-free flavored packets. Okay. Fruit juice. Will it hydrate you?
I guess it depends on what fruit juice.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so I'm hearing no. I'm going to keep going. Organic fruit juice, will it hydrate you?
No.
Okay, no. Cranberry juice, will it hydrate you?
Yes.
Okay, I'm hearing yes for cranberry juice. Everybody saying
No,
yes?
too much sugar.
No. Okay. Orange juice, will it hydrate you?
No.
No. Any other juice deemed as healthy, will it hydrate you?
No.
No.
Okay, so why did I put all of these in a cluster like this, right? These are the ones that I get asked the most about. And what I will say again, we're keeping in mind that nutrition is not black and white, right? So this is not to say that these are bad for you. But when it comes to hydration status, these juices do not contribute, okay? They have calories in them, right? They typically have some type of sugar. And the other thing about fruit juice, so fresh juice would be a better option in general, right? Fresh juice would be a better option, and it does add to hydration, but I still want you having, I still want you having water as your main source of hydration, right? So all of these juices, when you think about fruit is made up of kind of 4 main components, okay? So it's made up of fiber, we already talked about that, which would be in the pulp and the skin, right? And fruit is also made up of vitamins and minerals, okay? That's why cranberry juice is, or cranberries in general is really good for women's health, right? Orange juice is good for our immune system. We know these things. I'm gonna get back to 100% cranberry juice in a second, but I do see that question. Okay, so it's made up of fiber, it's made up of vitamins, it's also made up of water. We know that fruit has water, and then the last thing is sugar. It's made up of sugar. So when you juice something, you are taking something out, right? So if you start out with fruit, you have these 4 things. The main thing that you're getting rid of is the fiber. So now you just have water, sugar, and vitamins. Okay. So when you kind of think about it that way, it's not really necessarily the healthiest thing when it comes to choosing fruit juice over fruit. I would rather you just eat the fruit. Okay. 100% cranberry juice. So it's interesting that you asked that. It's very hard to find 100% cranberry juice because cranberries just in nature do not have a lot of juice in them. They also are not sweet. So if you are using 100% cranberry juice, most cranberry juices are cocktails. I'll just say it that way. Which a cocktail means that it has some juice in it, it has some water and some sugar. Okay, so most cranberry juices are typically not 100% cranberry juice. All right. So we're getting towards the end, and I'm gonna definitely open up. What about diet drinks? That's a good question. So diet drinks kind of live in the realm of those sodas, right? It's not gonna hydrate you from a standpoint of simple sugars. It doesn't really add any simple sugars, so it's okay as an alternative to a super sweet drink like Coke, right? Because just so the Saints know, because I know people love their Coke, for one bottle of Coke, it has about 65 grams of sugar in it. Now, what does that look like? That is about a third of a cup of sugar, okay? So 3 bottles of those, that's a whole cup of sugar. That's a lot of sugar, guys. A third of a cup of sugar is a lot of sugar. Yes. And so when people say diabetes in a bottle, they're not lying. Oh, and another fun fact. In the chat really quickly, which soda do you think, and I'm gonna get back to the smoothie question in a second, which soda do you think has the most sugar in it? Just throw it out in the chat.
Pepsi.
So I hear Pepsi, I see Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
I hear Mountain Dew. Any diet soda, Sprite, Mountain Dew, Pepsi, Coke. Okay, so everybody who is saying Mountain Dew is absolutely correct. It's not Coke, it's not Dr. Pepper, it's not Sprite. It's going to be Mountain Dew. So for that same bottle that we was talking about, remember I said Coke has about 65 grams of sugar in it. Mountain Dew is going to have 77 grams of sugar, okay? So if you take nothing else away from this, get rid of the Mountain Dew. Really, if you can, get rid of all the drinks, but definitely get rid of the Mountain Dew, okay? All right, so smoothies. So smoothies are good to have. I like smoothies. The one thing I will say about a smoothie, it doesn't go to hydration goals, it goes to more of your calories. But you have to make sure your smoothies are balanced, right? So if you have a smoothie that has bananas, mangoes, strawberries, and then you have some type of sweetened yogurt and maybe some ice, that's a lot of sugar, right? So if you are making smoothies, consider adding some type of non-starchy vegetable. I know it sounds crazy, but spinach, kale, some people like carrots in their smoothies. I can't get with that. Cucumber is another good one that you can add to smoothies. And so now it starts to balance it out where you're not just taking in a bunch of blended sugary items, right? All right, so now my thoughts on weight loss, fad diets, wait a minute. Weight loss, fad diet. Okay, I don't know how I wrote this, Saints. But fad diets, shots, and surgeries is what we're going to talk about. So we're going to start with intermittent fasting. And a lot of people ask about intermittent fasting because it's new and up and coming. It's the new thing, right? And typically for those who don't know, intermittent fasting is when you eat within a very specific window of time and then you fast for the rest of that time. So most people who do intermittent fasting will do what they call 8-16. So for 16 hours of the day, they're going to be fasting. And then for the 8 hours, that's when they're going to have their eating window. Okay, so your eating window is literally, everybody has an eating window. But your eating window is the time that you start eating to the time that you stop eating. Okay. In general, just general good nutrition, you want your eating window to be about maximum 12 hours. Okay. So if you start at 9 a.m., at max, you should be done by 9 p.m. Okay. Most of us don't live in a 12-hour eating window, but that is something definitely to consider. It helps to keep your metabolism going strong. Okay. But back to intermittent fasting. So the thing that I'll say about intermittent fasting is it can be very beneficial. But one thing that I find is a lot of people will do it. And then when their window opens up, they don't eat. They'll eat one meal and be like, oh, I'm good. And then once that 8-hour window closes, they're hungry again, right? When your window opens up for that intermittent fasting, you have to eat enough calories for yourself for the day. And then once it closes, you don't eat anything else, okay? So, within that 8 hours, if I started at, let's say if I started eating at 12 o'clock, in the afternoon, I might eat my first meal, and then in another hour and a half, 2 hours, I might eat a snack. Second meal, maybe another snack, and then my last meal by 8 o'clock, and then my window closes up and I don't eat again until that next day at 12 again, okay? Moving on to the ketogenic diet. I get a lot of questions about this as well. So with the ketogenic diet, it is, from a standpoint of weight loss, you definitely can lose weight on the ketogenic diet, okay? You can, it works. It's probably one of the diets that, if you do it right, is probably the most effective. But there are some caveats, okay? It can be it's very, very, very restricting. Typically, you can only eat about 20 carbohydrates a day, okay? So just keep in mind, remember I just told you 1 20-ounce bottle of soda is 67 or 65 grams of sugar per day. So you wouldn't even be able to, if you drunk like a third of that bottle, that would be all of your carbohydrates for the day. So it's very restricting in that way. The other thing about the ketogenic diet is when people get off of it, you typically have a big bounce back. So you'll lose all of that weight really quick, and then you get off of it, and most people gain that weight back pretty quickly. So that's definitely a downside. The other downside that people don't talk about with the ketogenic diet is it starts to affect your collagen, okay? So sometimes people will find that if they're on it for a long time, they'll start getting thin in hair. And if you already have thin in hair and you're trying to hold on to the little hair you got, it's probably not the diet for you, okay? And then it also can affect the way your skin looks. So they'll lose weight, but you'll start to see kind of that saggy kind of skin, sometimes sunken in eyes a little bit. The last thing about the keto diet is you got to get through the keto flu. So our body actually, the way it works is, as I said earlier, our main energy source is carbohydrates, right? So when you don't have carbohydrates, your cells feel starved. They feel like they don't have any food. So what our body does is it takes fat and it transforms it into what we call ketones, and our body is able to use that as energy. Now, with this being said, if you are not doing it right, for your body to get into a state of ketosis, it goes through these different processes. And if you're kind of going in and out of ketosis, where you kind of cheat and you might have a piece of an apple and then you get out of ketosis and then your body goes back in, all of those shifts, it can cause what we call the keto flu. It's where you have a bad headache. You can get keto breath and your breath stinks. You also don't have any energy. So keto, it works, but it's I don't really recommend it for most people.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
I heard that keto can be dangerous for those who are diabetic. Is that true?
That is true. That is true. Typically with people who are or who have diabetes, they have what we basically you kind of have to keep a consistent amount of carbs, right? Because the way our body works is our body kind of regulates how much insulin it sends based on how many carbs we're taking in. And when you're taking in so little carbs, it can really start to mess with that balance. Okay. So it can be dangerous. There has been a lot of research, and it's inconclusive right now, with doing keto in a controlled environment to see if it has an effect to help people with diabetes. But there is not a lot of research that shows that it does yet. So if you have type 2 diabetes, I definitely wouldn't recommend this diet. But it's again, it's not necessarily it's a good diet, a bad diet, because it's not black and white, but it's just something to be very careful and do your research. If you do your research, there are people who are successful on the ketogenic diet, but it takes a lot of research, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of pre-planning. So if you don't have time to commit like that, I wouldn't suggest it for you. All right, so moving on to low carb and no carb diets. The reason why no carbs is in parentheses, as we talked about earlier, carbs has two different types of categories, right? So we have our starches and we have our non-starchy vegetables. People who say no carbs, I don't know why this bothers me so much. Well, I do know why it bothers me so much. If you're eating vegetables, you're eating carbs. Okay, so it's not a no carb diet. Now, it is a low carb diet. It doesn't have a lot of starches and things. And again, that's something that can be beneficial. But you still just want to be careful. What I would recommend, and we'll talk about it next, is just kind of eating more of a balanced diet, right? Fat-free diet. I mean, are we still doing that, guys? Let's not do that one, okay? If you want a diet that is beneficial, one diet that I would suggest is the Mediterranean diet, which actually has fats in it, but it's good, healthy sources of fats, right? So it'll be things like olive oil. That diet is high in fish, right? And so it has a lot of good, healthy fats. All right, so moving on. GIP and GLP-1 antagonist shots. So these are going to be things like Ozempic. All of the other ones have left my head, but it's like 4 different shots. Ozempic is the most popular one, though. Yes, Mounjaro, thank you so much. And then it's like 2 other ones. But these shots are very controversial right now, right? And so what they basically do is they kind of affect the way our body produces insulin. One thing that people find when they are on these shots is that they lose their appetite. So they just don't want to eat. And so that can kind of be beneficial because it restricts it from a weight loss standpoint specifically, because it restricts the amount of calories you will naturally consume just because you don't want to. But with that, it also, you have to be careful. So when you lose weight, the weight that you want to lose is what we call our adipose tissue, or our body fat, right? You don't want to lose lean muscle mass, which is your muscles. A lot of times when people get on those shots, because they lose their appetite and they're not eating enough protein, they're also losing, yes, that's absolutely correct. They're also losing that lean muscle mass. So you're not only just losing the fat that you want to lose, but now you'll see, and that you can kind of see it with certain people with Ozempic, but they'll actually have kind of like indent in their temple sometimes. Sometimes their jaws will look a little sunken in because they're also, again, losing that lean fat mass. B12 shots are good. I like those. They're perfectly fine. And moving back up to the comment before, they will paralyze the stomach. There's a lot of research on that right now, which I've dealt with people who have those types of things. It's not fun. It's not fun. You literally feel like your food isn't going down, and it's not digesting because the stomach is paralyzed. Okay, so you got to be careful with that as well. But it does work, right? You do lose weight. The last thing I'll say about those shots is, yes. Well, I'll get back to that in a second. So weight loss surgery is the last one. Is it beneficial? Absolutely, right? It is beneficial, but there's also a caveat with that, right? So typically, what they have decided to go with most times now is the gastric sleeve. They had a lot of other ones, but that one probably is the safest as far as they have just dialed in on how to do it well, right? And so with the weight loss surgery, you tend to lose weight. But what I will say is, I'm gonna get back to, is that within 7 years, most people who have back, let me say that again, within 7 years, most people that have weight loss surgery gain their initial weight back. Within 10 years, most people who have weight loss surgery gain more weight than they did before they had the weight loss surgery. Why is that? It goes to all of these different things. When you finish a diet, right? So let's say you want to be slim and trim for the summer. So you go on a diet to lose 20 pounds. You lose those 20 pounds. One of two things happens. One, you either lose those 20 pounds, right? Or two, you give up on the diet and quit it altogether, right? But when you lose those 20 pounds, what do most people do once they have completed their goal with the diet? Do they stick with it? No, they go back to their old habits, right? And so all of these things are what we call tools. They're tools to help us lose weight, but they will not sustain us. There's a thing called maintenance. You got to continue to live a healthy lifestyle so that you can maintain the weight loss that you got with the ketogenic diet or the shots or the weight loss surgery. Okay. And so what happens is a lot of times with the weight loss surgery, the people who match, because you got to go through all these different things to make sure that you are ready to do the surgery. They are committed to the surgery, but once they get the surgery, they're not really committed to a new lifestyle. So if you do any of these things, just remember that you need to be committed to a new lifestyle, or the progress that you make, you probably will see it backtrack within a period of time. Okay. Really quickly, and I'm moving, the weight loss shots or the weight loss drugs that you see on commercials, I really wouldn't trust any of those. Most of those, the best version of that is going to be like some form of appetite suppressant. Those will actually help you lose weight because it suppresses your appetite, but I don't really suggest those either because it can play on so many other things. But most of those pills really don't have enough things in them. Science hasn't really proven that they really help aid in weight loss in the way that they claim. Okay, so be mindful of those. Those commercials will get you, and you just got a bunch of pills sitting in your cabinets. Okay, so be careful with those. All right, so we got a couple more slides, and then I'm done. So, nutritionally healthy versus healthy, or nutritionally healthy and healthy lifestyle versus weight loss. Okay, so a healthy lifestyle addresses the whole being, understanding that we are made up of body, mind, and spirit, right? Weight loss addresses physical appearance. A healthy lifestyle will reduce your risk of and possibly reduce/eliminate various diseases. Okay, weight loss can reduce your risk of and possibly eliminate or reduce various diseases. So changing your lifestyle overall will definitely reduce that risk. Losing weight can reduce that risk. Okay, so those are two completely different words. So just keep that in mind. Creating a healthy lifestyle is a holistic approach that considers mental health, stress levels, what you eat, how you eat, physical activity, hydration status, spiritual health, as well as sleep health. Weight loss considers how much you eat, physical activity, possibly what you eat, and possibly hydration status. Okay. So what am I getting at? The goal is to seek for a healthy lifestyle versus weight loss. Weight loss can be a motivator. It is possible to lose weight fast, but you don't want to lose. Typically, you shouldn't lose unless you have like a weight loss surgery, or if you really are of a larger body. For the average person, you really don't want to lose more than 1 to 2 pounds a week. Okay. If you're going faster than that, you're probably losing that lean muscle mass that we talked about that you don't want to lose. All right. So I'm moving. What should your plate look like? I need everybody to do this with me. We're going to keep it very simple. Okay. Make one fist. Okay. Everybody got a fist made? The size of this fist, okay, should be the portion of grains on your plate. Okay. Everybody's fist is a little different. Some of us are blessed with bigger fists, right? Some of us have smaller fists, but this should typically be about the size of grains. So when we talk about grains, that's going to be our starches, right? Bread, macaroni and cheese, potatoes, sweet potatoes, all of those things. Now, I don't care how you make up that fist, right? If you want a sliver of macaroni and cheese, a sliver of cornbread, a sliver of, as long as it fits within that, okay, we're now starting to create a balanced plate. All right, everybody make another fist, okay? That this size, same size, is going to be how much you have of protein on your plate. Okay, so for the average person, when you think about protein and your fist size, that would be about half of a chicken breast. It'll be about the size of a thigh, which sometimes these thighs, I don't know what they're shooting them up with, but it might be half of a thigh, depending on how big it is, right? But typically it's about the size of a thigh, or it could be like a leg and a wing, or maybe like 2 or 3 wings, okay? And then now make 2 fists, okay? So for these 2 fists on your plate, this should be the size of those non-starchy vegetables. It says fruit and vegetables, but I really want those vegetables to lead, okay? So again, all of those things we talked about. This can include greens, right? Now, it can include greens if I see like 2 pieces of greens and it's a big ham hock on the plate. That's, that's probably not greens, right? It's probably going to your meat portion. But this can include greens. It can include, salad. So many different things. Bell peppers, carrots, all of those things. And then some of that 2 fists can be made up of fruit, right? And so if you think of it this way, this is a good cut and dry, easy way to think about how to balance your plate. Because most people will always kind of have, if they're, they'll have their fists with them typically. But that's how your plate should be made up, okay? And this is what we call the MyPlate method. So in 2011, the USDA launched the MyPlate method for those of us who graduated before this time. We grew up knowing about the food pyramid, okay? They got rid of the food pyramid because it was confusing. To this day, I don't remember how it goes out. And so this is just an easier way to think about building your plate. Okay, so 25% again of your plate, which would be about the size of your fist, should be grains. 25%, which is about the size of your fist, should be proteins. And 50% should be non-starchy vegetables and fruits, which would be about 2 fists. You can substitute healthy fats for grains. So instead of grains, if you did more of like a Mediterranean diet, you might have things like nuts and seeds on the plate, or you might have like some avocado instead of those grains. Okay. Healthy fats aren't really included on this plate because it's assumed that you will kind of get that in your meal as you cook. All right. So fostering a healthy lifestyle, it's recommended that you have physical activity 30 minutes 5 times per week. I don't care what this looks like. Most people, when they think about physical activity, the two things that I always get is I'm going walking or I'm going to the gym, right? But physical activity literally is just moving your body and getting your heart rate up. So if your heart is starting to increase and you're getting, I need a little dew. I tell people all the time, you got to have that dewy skin. If you're not sweating, you don't have to be full on sweating, but I need some moisture up here, okay? That is considered physical activity. Now, when we say 30 minutes 5 times a week, we are talking about active physical activity, not passive. So what passive looks like is things that you have to do throughout the day anyway, right? So when people say things like, well, I go to the grocery store, but I park further back. Perfectly fine. God bless you. Continue to do that. That is going to add to it, but that's not going to add to those 30 minutes 3 to 5 times or 5 times a week. Okay. People will say, well, I walk a lot at my job. Well, our bodies get used to the exercise that we do every single day. So if you walk a lot at your job and you're not losing anything or your lifestyle really isn't changing, you still have to increase and add more physical activity. Okay, when it comes to sleep, good sleep habits, developing a sleep routine. Young people, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of those things, have a time of night that you cut those things off. Okay, the reason being is when you are scrolling, you see a cat video, then you see a man rescuing, somebody from a fire, then you see a fight, then you see a happy birthday, and your brain is just jumping from thing to thing. And then you cut it off and you expect to be able to go to sleep. Well, those neurons are still firing, okay? So you have to have some wind down time. So 30 minutes before you go to bed, 15 to 30 minutes is recommended that you start to decompress, cut off those devices, have some soft music playing. You can do aromatherapy. They have little pillow sprays, taking a hot bath, a hot shower, all of those things help because you want to get a good 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Spiritual and mental health, as well as stress. I got a couple scriptures up here because all of these things play a part too. Stress is it can play a major part in our overall health. So make sure that you are keeping your stress in check. Of course, you got to trust in the Lord. Do not lean to your own understanding, but leave it at his doorstep. And then the second scripture I have, of course, we know faith without works is dead. If you are having some type of stress or anxiety or a mental crisis, and of course, continue to pray, obviously ask God to help take those things away, but it is also okay to seek help, okay? Because you got to have the faith, do the work, right? So just keep those things in mind. All right, it's my last slide. Motivation plus discipline. Motivation, the reason motivation is defined as the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Self-discipline is defined as correction or regulation of oneself for the sake of improvement. Okay, so when you start your health journey, I want you to initiate the journey by finding something or someone that motivates you. It can be shallow. Hey, I got a trip coming up. I want to be in my best shape. I want to feel energized. I want to make sure that I got enough energy that when I get there, I'm able to do these things. That's fine, but that is something that motivates you. Okay. All right. And then it could be something deep. I want to make sure that I'm around to see my kids, my grandkids grow up. I don't want to be on this earth as an older person and not be able to still enjoy myself, right? So these are things that can motivate you. And then understand that self-discipline is trained and a practiced behavior, okay? This is a big one. If you're going to be self-disciplined, it's something that you have to continue to practice, okay? If I'm saying that, by 8 o'clock, I'm going to stop eating, obviously things happen, and I would recommend that if you have to eat, right? I don't want you to go starving because your cutoff time is absolutely 8. But if you've known that have eaten an adequate meal, don't go in there dipping in and saying, I'm gonna eat a couple pieces of chocolate and then I'm gonna start back tomorrow. Well, tomorrow never comes, as the saying goes, so start today. And continue to work on that discipline. And let those two things provide you consistency. I always teach people about the stair-step method versus the elevator and escalator method. Every building that has more than one floor will always have stairs, even if it has an escalator or elevator, right? Because we know that escalators and elevators break down. But as long as you keep going step by step, eventually you will get to your goal. So what do I mean by that? I don't want you to go gung-ho tomorrow and say, oh, I'm gonna work out 5 times a week. I'm gonna eliminate all beverages. I'm going to, start small, right? I'm gonna get rid of the beverages. That's not, for some people, that's not a big ask. And then, maybe I'm gonna start out by working out, locking in on 1 to 2 times per week. And as you build up that consistency, then you slowly increase, okay? And this also goes to my people who take those breaks. Don't work out, go really hard, build up all these muscles, take a break, and then think you can come back and do the exact same thing you did a year or 2 ago. That's not going to work. Okay, you got to start back at the beginning and build back up to that. Okay, so always think about your health journey as climbing stairs versus taking an elevator and an escalator. And that is my presentation for the day. I hope that y'all have learned something. I see some questions already.
Excellent.
But I hope, that I have been a blessing to you on today. Amen.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you. So I see, let me see. There was a question on YouTube. What is your thoughts on monk fruit, erythritol, and stevia? So this is a good question. Stevia and monk fruit are both natural sweeteners. So they come from plants, right? Stevia comes from the stevia leaf, and monk fruit comes from the monk fruit. And so those are fine typically to have. They don't really mess with the body too much when it comes to like our microbiome and things like that. So those are fine. Erythritol and things like azorbital, xylitol, all of those are what we call sugar alcohols. And they are man-made, they're lab created. Okay, so you got to be careful with those because those can mess with the microbiome or that good gut bacteria. The other thing, fun fact, that I learned the hard way is that those sugar alcohols are a natural diuretic. So fun story, I'm gonna start telling my business a little bit. While I was in school, it was during COVID. When I was getting this degree, it was I started before COVID, but as I was ending, it was like right at the beginning of COVID. And so we had went to online classes. And so I was doing my research on actually, believe it or not, the ketogenic diet and type 2 diabetes. And so I was going down this rabbit hole and I found out this sweetener called Swerve, which is erythritol. And I said, well, I'm gonna just try it. I'm gonna put some in my tea, right? So I had unsweetened iced tea. I added it to my tea and I was drinking it and I was online just like this in class. And when I tell you something hit me like a weight of glory, and I had to get up immediately. I almost didn't make it, because it is a natural diuretic. So you have to be careful with the erythritol, okay? You gotta be careful. It will take you out. And so that's kind of my take on that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank y'all. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Can you talk about how we can, like on social media, what we can see you on and different
Yes.
things?
Okay, so as I said, my moniker is Chef Boy RDN. You can find me on Facebook, of course. I think I see a lot of y'all over there. I typically post videos. As you can see, I haven't been posting a lot in the last few weeks, just because I've been preparing for this and a couple of other things that I had going on. But typically, I just do quick, informative videos. On that, I'm also on Instagram and on IG. You can find me as Chef Boy RD.N. Okay. And I'm always posting. I try to keep it fun. I try to keep it light, but I try to also keep it informative. I also do my Meatless Fridays. We're working on consistency, and we believe in the Lord for it. But the goal is to have it every Friday. And I basically started incorporating a meatless day into my diet every day, or every week, I'm sorry. Because research has shown just incorporating one meat-free day helps to reduce your chance of elevated cholesterol levels, as well as cardiovascular disease. So just keep that in mind. I want to see some people maybe trying it with me, post some pictures, tag me, because it's fun. It's fun to try to eat different foods. And if you look at my videos, if I do brag on myself just a little bit, the food looks pretty good. Okay. So don't be scared of meatless food. It's just plants. I really don't do a lot of meat byproducts too much. Like I'll have an Impossible meat on there every now and again. But for the most part, when you see my Meatless Fridays, it's typically, if you really look at it, it's all vegetables, beans, grains, things like that make up my foods. Okay.
Jamarcus, I know you used to do the, like during the pandemic and everything, you used to do like the cooking on Zoom. If you do any of those, can you let those of us who don't do the social media thing know so that we can hop on? Otherwise, I'm gonna stay fat because I don't have social media. So please let me know. Thank you.
That is fair. I definitely will. I definitely will.
Yes, and
Definitely will.
you let me know. I have a question.
Yes.
If you think you eating healthy according to what you said, but today a lot of our vegetables, well, no, a lot of our fruits are cloned, and a lot of our vegetables and meats are injected with CMOs or other, GMOs and other chemicals for process, to grow them fast and to make them bigger. Do you recommend us to still take vitamins even though you eat healthy, or what do you recommend? Because we are getting those what's the chemicals in our bodies. Some things you can't wash away.
So that's a good question. And that goes into, I do a lot of personal self-study on, I don't know if y'all can tell, I keep talking about it, but I love kind of the microbiome and how it's affected by the foods we eat, because it's literally a whole ecosystem of bacteria just living in our body that is beneficial to us. And that's interesting to me. And so the reason why I bring that up is because when you kind of start thinking about food and how it is processed today, to be honest, America hasn't done us the greatest service as far as making sure that we're eating those healthy, natural foods. And even with research, you can see simple things like if you look at the back of a ketchup bottle, right, for America versus a ketchup bottle in Canada, there are so many other products that they add to those ketchup bottles. Whereas in Canada, it's literally like ketchup, maybe a little bit of sugar, some vinegar, and water. For us, it's high fructose corn syrup. It's a bunch of different chemicals. So it's hard to kind of answer that question, because where I would want everybody to start is to start by just having a balanced diet. Unfortunately, some of those things we just can't avoid unless you are growing your own food, and that goes into a whole nother realm of things. You can reduce a lot of those pesticides and things by shopping organic, but as we know, that can be expensive. And also organic foods, there isn't enough regulation on them yet so that people can get away with doing certain things with organic foods. And if they get to the loophole, they still can have different things that help them grow and stuff like that and still be able to call it organic. I do recommend, just in general, for most people taking a multivitamin, because if I'm being honest, most people aren't eating enough of a balanced meal to get those vitamins in daily. But even with multivitamins, those vitamins are synthesized. So our body doesn't absorb them as much as they do absorb natural vitamins. So you should be using both of them together in tandem, right? Because you're probably not going to get as many vitamins as you need from your fruits and vegetables and things like that. But if you ate terrible and said, well, I'm going to just supplement with a multivitamin, a lot of the vitamins from the multivitamin also aren't getting absorbed necessarily. So you got to kind of do them together.
Okay, my next question is, on one of your beginning slides, you had mentioned flaxseed.
Mm-hmm.
I use flaxseed oil. Is that good?
Yeah, so flaxseed oil is good. It's going to be one of those oils that's high in omega-3 fatty acids. Other oils that I did mention, grapeseed oil is typically a good oil. I know, as Black people, we might not want to hear this, but vegetable oil, canola oil, those are the ones that you want to be cautious about, okay? Because they have a lot of sterols and things that can work against us. So that's why I recommend like the olive oil, the avocado oil as much as possible. And the avocado oil doesn't have any flavor or smell, and it has a high smoke point. So it's a good alternative to using those canolas and those vegetable oils.
Okay.
Now, avocado oil is a little more expensive. So if you're frying food, go ahead and use those oil, the canola oil or the vegetable oil, but you really shouldn't be frying food often, right? So you shouldn't be taking in those oils often.
Okay, I have one last question about the water.
Mhm.
I am a bottle drinker
Mhm.
for water, but I was always told that faucet water was the best water, but to boil it. And that's because it has minerals, it has things in it that we need, but boil it for purity.
Right. So the thing that I always say about that is, to be honest, I don't get too much into the logistics of water, because at baseline, we're not drinking enough. And the minerals that we need, we will get those same minerals through our vegetables and our fruits and our food. Okay, so water for me is more about just hydration. If you are getting the benefits of the minerals, that's fine. So for me, however you like the taste of your water is what I suggest over kind of which one is better for you, if that makes sense.
An infusion is good to do, right? When you put like lemon in your water.
Yes, yeah. So, and that adds to your hydration status, as we was talking about earlier, right? So you can always infuse your water with berries, mints, different herbs. Ginger is a good one. Ginger aids in digestion, right? So ginger would be a good thing to add to your water, but you can always infuse. The one thing that I will say that I am most concerned about, and that I always kind of put a caveat on, is just those flavored packets. You got to be careful with those. Okay. Is raw sunflower seed oil healthy? Yes, it is. That's fine.
One more question. Is you know the flavor water and it has 0 all the way in the nutrition. Are
Mhm.
those ice and
Yeah, so ice, those drinks are okay, especially if you're a person that's trying to kick the soda habit, right? They're gonna be a better alternative typically than a soda, but it still is that Splenda, right? So that's that artificial sweetener that can also affect the microbiome and kind of affect a lot of things. And then also with Splenda specifically, there's a lot of research right now. It's not necessarily super conclusive, but Splenda actually might play a part in insulin resistance. And so when we think about insulin resistance, most people only think about type 2 or type 1 diabetes, but insulin resistance is also the thing that can help us gain weight. You know, you see insulin resistance a lot with PCOS as well. That's one of the main um, problems that they have with PCOS is insulin resistance. So just be careful with the sucralose. It's not 100% proven, but it has shown an affinity to affecting our insulin resistance.
Jamarcus, did you see the question in the chat regarding allergies and raw fruit and vegetables?
I didn't.
Okay.
Okay,
It
I
says,
see it. I see it.
okay.
For those of us who have allergies to many raw fruits, to many raw fruits and vegetables. Okay. Yeah, so anytime that you add heat to a food, you're gonna lose some of those nutrients. That's just how it goes. I wish I could tell you no, but you're not losing so much that it's not worth it. Like if you have to cook it, but still eat those fruits and those vegetables, you're still going to get some minerals and some good and a nice amount of minerals and vitamins from it still. And then speaking of allergies, I didn't say this, but it just kind of I thought about it. When you think about seasonal allergies, one thing that could possibly help those is choosing local honey when you can. You don't have to always buy it, but local honey made from bees that are in your area, those bees fly and get their nectar from those flowers in your area. And so when you eat that honey, what you're basically doing is introducing some of those pollens and things like that, so your body can build up a certain level of immunity, and it's been shown to be able to help with seasonal allergies. Now that don't mean that you're still not going to be snotting, but it might be a little less. Okay.
Hey, I wasn't on here earlier, but do you think plant-based is a better way to go for overall health?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I have it's really different for everybody. Again, unfortunately, nutrition is in black and white. Some people do better with plant-based, some people do better actually with more of a meat-based diet. But typically the benefits of having a plant-based diet, one of the major benefits is you're going to get enough fiber for the most part, which we know we always lack. The other benefit is cholesterol specifically is only introduced with animal products. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Animals are the only thing that produces cholesterol. Cows, chickens, humans, even we produce our own cholesterol. So technically we don't need you never hear somebody say, oh, did you get your daily servings of cholesterol today? Because we naturally produce it, right? So when you have a completely plant-based diet, it doesn't have any cholesterol in it. So you're not increasing that cholesterol level. You're just having the cholesterol that your body naturally makes. Discuss colon hydrotherapy, colonics, and other ways to rid your body of toxins. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this because this will be a whole nother conversation. But one thing I will say is you do have to be, it's beneficial to make sure that your colon is working properly, right? So, and your small intestines. One of the easiest, friendliest ways to do that is just by eating more fiber. Fiber comes through kind of like a little scrub pad, and it helps kind of get rid of a lot of those things that you don't need. Now, that's for most people. Some people don't need too much fiber, especially if you have like IBS or Crohn's and you're having a flare up, then you probably don't need to have the fiber. But you also have to be careful with doing natural or doing diuretics at home. So like the magnesium citrate, right? It's okay to use to flush your body to make sure that everything is flowing the way it should flow. But if you're using it as kind of to help yourself lose weight and you're using it very often, that's not good. It's going to actually, it can lead to dehydration. It can start to affect, again, the microbiome because you're really flushing your body a lot in a way that you really shouldn't. It could also lead to things like rectal bleeding, which nobody wants. So if you are doing like a colon cleanse and things like that, definitely it's good to do every now and again, but it shouldn't be super, super, super consistent.
Hi, it's Parthenia. That was my question. How are you? I was on
Hi.
YouTube. I just decided to move over. I was asking Nikki to post so many. Yeah, as far as the hydro colon method with the actual hydrotherapist in an
Yes.
actual atmosphere, not yourself, but going into and working with an actual hydrotherapist on
Yes.
those things for hydro.
That can definitely help. And you're absolutely right. The only reason I bring up the last statement is because a lot of people will try to take matters into their own hands. And I've seen it more times than I can count. But yes, working with a hydrotherapist definitely can help with cleansing out the colon and making sure that the colon is, properly cleansed. We don't have what we call stuck poop or old poop in there, because those things can lead to polyps and things like that, which again can eventually lead to cancer if they're not taken care of. So having some type of cleanse is always good. You just don't want to take matters into your own hands too much and overdo it and mess yourself up.
At this time, I want to thank everyone for joining. We're pushing 2 hours, but Jamarcus, this has been so great, and I want to thank you. And Sister Vicky, please unmute your mic and say hello to the people. This is beautiful wife.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Praise the Lord.
God bless you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for both of y'all taking the time to be with us and to give us this information. Jamarcus, I will be in touch. And if anyone has any questions, if you have my contact information and not his, you can let me know. I can put you in touch. If that's okay, Jamarcus, I don't want to just offer up your time.
No, that is perfectly fine. I
Okay.
love that.
After I said it right. But yeah, so thank you all so much. And I'll let you have the last words. But other than that, have a great afternoon.
Yeah, so I want to thank y'all, as she said, for coming out. I appreciate all of the support. I want to thank you for support in general. When I see different comments on Facebook, Instagram, all of that, it keeps me motivated. I think it's so interesting that people are so quick to click on, fighting videos and even cooking videos when it's, we're rolling up Cheerios into something else and doing all these different things. But people are a little more scarce to click on videos that really do help to aid in your health. So I would suggest and recommend for everybody, always do your own research. If you can, as you can, not only just listen to people on social media, but look at peer-reviewed articles, pull up studies so that you're not just and listen to professionals, please. There are a lot of people providing different nutrition or forms of nutrition on the internet, and it can just be a scary place. When I see certain things, I see, a lot of misinformation going on. So I just want to thank y'all again. As she said, any questions that y'all may have, you can definitely send it to her. And as I see y'all, you can always ask your questions. You can ask your questions online as well. And I'll do my best to try to answer them for you. So thank y'all again. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you, brother. Have a blessed one, everybody.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks. Be blessed.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much. Thank you so much. How you feel?
Me?
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Oh, I love it. I
Okay.
love talking. No, I'm
Okay.
just kidding. I really don't. I have a social timer, but this was a good one. This was a good one.
Listen, yes. And mine is exact. When I'm drained,
Right.
that's it. I'll be like, good
That's
night.
it.
Log out.
That's it.
So,
But no, this
excuse
was
Thank
me.
you,
So you gonna do
Jamarcus.
this once a month or what?
Oh, there you see how the people do. You see how the saints do.
I mean,
Brian,
since he said he like it,
you said what?
I said since he said he like it, right? He like to do that, right? So
Well, this is
Well,
what he does. This is his area, but he didn't say he
yes.
wanted to be on here every Saturday, giving up 2 hours of his time.
I said, Nikki, I said once a month.
I don't know.
I ain't say every Saturday, once a
I'm
month.
gonna give you his email address.
Do that. That way you don't need to do one of these. I can contact you myself. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
there
Look,
you
he
go.
gonna
There
light
you
you
go.
up.
Now,
He gonna
now
light you up with them
give
questions.
me grace now.
Right, exactly.
I'm with you. I
Give
understand.
me
I
a
understand.
collection of questions, not just like
Got you.
question email, question email, question email.
Got you. I got you. I appreciate
Okay.
you though.
Yes, of course, of course.
Oh,
All
you
right,
know what,
Nick.
Brian? He'll be at convocation. So there you go.
Oh,
Y'all can
yes.
sit down and eat breakfast one morning.
How about that? I
And
guess
you
I
could just
better find me
drain him
something
right
healthy.
there, all the
Yeah.
information, the nutritional
Yeah.
value.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, Nikki. Now she done set you up now. So thank her.
As usual. As usual.
All right.
Thank you. Y'all be blessed.
All
All right
right.
there.